Hi everybody, welcome to the January 9th edition of the Through the Bible Study. I'm David. Good to have you today. Today, January 9th, we are in Genesis 17 and 18 and also Matthew chapter 9. Excuse me, I'm sitting in a restaurant taping this today. Well, in chapter 17 and 18, we continue, of course, with Abram and Sarah. God promises his covenant to Abram of using him in his work here on earth to be the patriarch to the Hebrew people. That's what chapter 17 is primarily about. In chapter 17 also we have the changing of Abram and Sarai's names. Abram, which was the name Abram means exalted father, is changed to Abraham. So from now on we'll be able to refer to him as Abraham, which means father of a multitude. Yes, father of a multitude. Sarai, her name, princess or my princess, now becomes Sarah, which is queen. God exalted the names of these two individuals to a higher status, higher stature because of his work with them. And God continues to promise to Abraham that he would birth a child, even in his old age, that he was going to give him a son, Isaac by name, that through him, the next patriarch of the Hebrew people, that his nation, God's nation, would be born. In chapter 18 then, we continue with the promise to Abraham and Sarah of the birth of this child. And Sarah laughs. Sarah can't believe that in her old age of 90 years old that God could possibly give from her a child to be born, and yet it will be true. And then near the close of the chapter, there's kind of a shift, and God tells Abraham about what he's going to do to Sodom and Gomorrah. If you remember with me a few chapters back when God first mentioned Sodom and Gomorrah, this is where Lot, Abraham's nephew, this is where Lot chose to live because Abraham saw there was just, the two families were getting too big, that there just had to be a split between them. And so Abraham said, choose wherever you want. I'll go one way once you say what direction. I'll go the other way once you choose where you want to be. It says Lot looked around him and saw the plush, fertile, beautiful land of the Sodom and Gomorrah area, and that's what he chose. Even though out of he should have deferred to Abraham, his uncle, the right, and said, oh, but you've been so good to me, you make the call, or he should have, picked a lesser, but rather he chose what he saw to be the very best. And he chose what was full of sin. I mean, right there in that chapter, God said, through the writer, through the author of Genesis, that this was an area full of sin. You see, it could be beautiful on the outside, could look lovely and lush and wonderful, but it's what's inside. Well, God tells Abraham that he's going to destroy this area in chapter 18, and God is begged upon by Abraham to please have compassion and spare it. Spare it if he found 100 people that were righteous, or 50 or 45 or 40, just a few righteous people, would God please have mercy and not destroy it, even if he only found 10 righteous people? And God said he would. Even if it were just 10 righteous people, God would spare the land of Sodom and Gomorrah. But we know that he didn't, because when we get to chapter 19, it is destroyed. Well, let's look over at Matthew chapter 9 now, because there's a link there that I wish to point out. Many miracles are performed in chapter 9 that we read of Christ healing individuals. But it's at the close of that chapter that I wish to draw our attention. In verse 36, and there it says, "And seeing the multitude, Christ felt compassion for them, because they were distressed and downcast, like sheep without a shepherd." Now, that word compassion, I didn't realize how many times that the word compassion is used in speaking of Christ. But it says of his compassion in chapter 12, verse 7, chapter 14, verse 14. And in fact, I'll just show you at the beginning of my book on Matthew, if you see up at the top, I have all the places listed where it speaks of Christ having compassion, of feeling love for those around him, as it says, as a sheep without a shepherd. Well, God loves you. If you ever feel alone, if you feel like you're just without, God loves you. He wants to be your shepherd. Turn to him. When you find, perhaps as Lot did, that all that he thought was going to be so wonderful turns out so ugly, turn to God. But thanks for being with me today. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.